Well, hello. Welcome back to the Scale My Ecom Store podcast. Kath Langman here with you on the show again. Now, a few weeks ago, my daughter Isabel was promoted to one of our swimming club's top squads, which meant she's gone from 5 1-hour training sessions a week to 5 2-hour training sessions a week, plus gym sessions on top of that. And I know her brothers still think that's a little bit pathetic, but that's a lot for her. She's a bit of a noodle at the moment. She's 13. She's growing like a weed. She's never done any of this intensity. She's certainly never done any gym before. And, not to mention the new squad sessions have a warm up that's more like the main set from her previous trainings. And then, a lot more technique stuff on top of that as well. So you can imagine this is a whole new learning curve for her. And in fact, after the first long session in the pool and the gym, pretty sure she had to do chin-ups for the first time in her life. She actually came out saying she'd lost the will to live. Sadly, she was joking because I could honestly do without dealing with the logistics of another swimmer in this house. But anyway, what the heck does this story have to do with e-commerce, business and marketing, you might be wondering? I promise it does. And I just wanted to start with a little bit of an anecdote here because it always makes things feel a little bit more real. So in moving up to this squad, Izzy is now being coached by a top national swimming coach. The quality and intensity of her training is now such that her improvement is accelerating at a much faster rate. She's already got some state qualifying times and she's not far off some national qualifying times for some of her events. And on top of the sense of achievement that she's feeling from this really big leap forward in her performance, she's also enjoying the sport a whole lot more, which I think stems from two things. Firstly, she's training in a squad where everyone else also wants to train hard and achieve those kinds of goals. So it's the people around her that bring that enjoyment. But secondly, it's just so intensely satisfying to make such obvious improvements in such a short period of time. And I think we all feel like that in whatever, new endeavor that we are undertaking, whether it's personal life or business life or, some other thing that you are taking on, challenge, new skill, whatever it is, right? And so the whole point of this story is to discuss the ROI, return on investment, on learning or of learning, because this idea of the ROI on learning has the potential to have such a massive impact on your ability not just to grow your business bigger, but also to grow it faster. So that, being able to grow your business quickly or slowly and, in a significant way or not. So let me give you another example here. So just recently, I started working with a brand owner who I had first spoken to about 3 years ago. And back then, she was not keen to invest in learning, and instead, she decided to try and grow her revenue a little bit more before trying to make that kind of an investment. And fast forward to just a couple of months ago, so nearly 3 years later, her revenue had not grown at all. She was still stuck at the same level, which, super frustrating. And so then she did decide to take the leap and start working with us. And over the last couple of months, she's implemented a whole lot of new strategies to her website, to her paid and organic traffic channels, to email, and a whole lot of other stuff. And in the last 30 days, her revenue has exploded 70% year on year. So she's literally just paid for an entire year's worth of coaching with us in the space of 2 months, thanks to the revenue growth that she's already achieved in 30 days. Now, I'm going to actually add a screenshot of her Shopify dashboard to the podcast show notes page if you want to go check that out. So I'm not making it up. And what I wanted to say is not only has she experienced this incredible growth in the last month, but she now also hit her increased revenue targets 2 months in a row. And she has also got this, feeling of both amazement and excitement about her business in a way that she told me she wasn't sure was even possible before. So what this comes down to is the difference in ROI on learning from free sources versus learning from an experienced coach. And then even when you are learning from an experienced coach, learning from the right kind of coach, it's the right kind of experience for whatever your need is in the moment, but also the right kind of learning style for you. Now, before we dive into the details of all of this, though, I'd really love to let you know about our brand new free coaching sessions that we have just opened up. We do have a few spaces available. They are limited, but we have a few spaces available for e-commerce brand owners who have some ambitious goals, but feel really stuck right now about how you'll possibly achieve them. You can find out a few more details, but if that sounds like you, just head to catherinelangman.com and you'll find it in the top menu link on the website there. We'll pop the link to that on the podcast show notes page here to make that easy for you. But you can go and grab one of those before they book out. All right, let's talk about our topic of how to maximize your ROI on learning so that you can catapult the growth of your business forwards faster and more profitably. And the first thing I think is that you really just need to actually understand what I mean by ROI on learning. I don't know that, many of us necessarily think about things in these terms, especially early days in the business, or if you've never taken a course or, worked with a coach or outsourced anything in your business before. And so what I mean by ROI and learning is, what is the return on investment? So the investment would be, paying to invest in, gaining new knowledge, developing new skills, getting the right kind of experience wherever the gap in experience might be for you in your business right now. But the ROI, by the ROI, I mean, what revenue growth on top of where you're at right now do you get as a result of having that new knowledge, those new skills, and having the experience that you need, right? So that ROI in learning, some of it might come quickly, some of it might take a little while. Certainly, if you need to learn better marketing, you need to learn different marketing. Maybe you don't know how to drive traffic and sales consistently right now. That sort of knowledge and skills is going to generally get a pretty quick ROI. Some other skills take a little bit longer. Swimming, that definitely takes longer. Takes a lot. Takes 4 years between Olympics. So there we go. But in business, I'll give you another example. At the moment, I've been working on learning some new skills and experience in business process mapping, which is something I've done some of in the past, but not to the level of detail and sophistication that I'm doing at the moment. And, it's going to pay huge dividends down the track, but it's not something that is going to have an immediate impact on my, sales, for example. But, in terms of being able to scale a business process mapping, unfortunately, is one of those things that is required if you want to grow a team so that everybody knows what they're doing, how they're doing it, and working together and all of this kind of stuff. This episode is not about business process mapping. Don't worry, it's probably the most boring thing in the business, in my opinion. But anyway, so return on investment, obviously having additional revenue as a result of gaining the right, new knowledge and skills and experience. And, what are some of those other benefits that you might get? You might gain this new revenue because you are working at a more efficient, productive rate, because you're able to, complete tasks more efficiently and effectively. You might be doing them more accurately in a first time around versus ad hoc previously. Another super important return that you would get from learning would be more accurate decision making, increased innovation, those sorts of things. So some additional benefits there that are really worthwhile in business, particularly with e-commerce and digital marketing. I mean, when you think about how fast paced the e-commerce world is, we do need to be creative. We do need to be innovative with our marketing. There's new technologies coming available all the time. So continuous learning is just incredibly important. We have to find ways to, keep that learning up if we want to keep growing our business. All right. I want to give you a few real life examples of gaining a really positive return on investment on learning from a couple of entrepreneurs who have invested in learning and seen some significant business growth. And so the first example is the one that I mentioned in the intro. So this founder, she almost doubled her revenue in a very, very short space of time, less than 2 months after she started working with us, had, increased her revenue significantly. And, this really came from, I remember when she did start, she had a lot of good ideas. It wasn't like anything was particularly wrong or broken in what she was doing. But, like I had said earlier, she just wasn't growing her business. Everything was kind of staying the same. And, at the end of the day, if you keep doing the same things, you probably are going to get the same results. And so she's been able to learn, a whole bunch of new skills, but not only that, have them prioritized for her so that she knows what she needs to execute on first, second, third, in order to have the fastest, biggest impact. And she's also got, the help there to make sure that she's implementing things correctly and accurately. She's got the accountability there, so she's getting it done in a timely manner and all of that kind of stuff. And so, that the outcome that she's experienced so far has been really, really incredible. She hasn't even got all of her paid traffic strategies up yet, so there's a lot more growth to come. The second example that I want to share is might be something relevant where if you're a little bit further ahead, maybe you have had some really good months of revenue, but perhaps it's just super inconsistent. It's jumping up and down, and you just not really able to get the operational efficiencies there, but also maybe your profit margins just aren't really great either. So maybe your ads are costing too much, maybe just because of the inconsistent revenue, your margins are being constrained. And so we had another client start with us about 3 months ago, and she was able to take advantage of not just some of our strategies. So in her case, a new product launch marketing campaign, a big integrated marketing campaign, but also some of our tools that we've developed in our agency that enable her to really focus on getting the best returns on her ad spend and the best profit margins across the board. And so we've got some really sophisticated planning and tracking tools that have taken years to develop, but they really have shifted the needle for her. And she said to me just last week that she has paid off a huge outstanding bill that she had from, I think it might have been moving warehouses or something along those lines, but then also paid for her next production run, and she's paid herself more than she's paid herself in the past, which is incredibly exciting. So we've got loads of case studies like that. If you want to go read more of the details, I always like to share some screenshots and step you through the specifics in terms of strategies and outcomes. So you can head over to productpreneurmarketing.com if you want to go and find those. Next, though, I just really wanted to have a chat about some of the common barriers to investing in learning, because I think this is, again, this is just such a common human experience. I don't think it's just in relation to business, learning in business. I think once we hit adulthood, the idea that we don't know enough, or that we might pay to go back to school, it's not something all of us are excited about. But certainly in business, I mean, there's some common fears around, fear of wasting money in particular, or losing the money that you've invested that, impacts a lot of us. That's a fear that I've had to address myself over the years. Um, I think a lot of people have had some experience taking ineffective courses or programs in the past that certainly, makes it harder to overcome those sorts of fears about investing in other different things down the track. But also, I've spoken to a lot of people who say they just felt really, really overwhelmed in large groups, and they just felt really lost in the group, and, that like they were not getting any specific attention on their own business. They were having maybe difficulty applying generic strategies to their own specific business needs, or just difficulty applying what was presented because there was no one-on-one help or no personalization at all. So, really just that fear that they're not going to be able to take advantage of the learning or the information, as well as the cost, comes into things. Something that can be super beneficial to help you get past that sort of fear is learning how to actually calculate what the ROI might be. Now, I remember last year I was talking with one of our clients, Amy from Custom Steel Appeal. She is an accountant, so calculating ROI and just calculating numbers generally comes completely naturally to her. And I remember chatting to her about working with us, and she said, Kath, I need to know that I'm going to get a 10 times ROI on the investment. And I mean, honestly, if I said yes to something like that, I'd need to be pretty confident that that was possible. In her case, I was able to look at all of her numbers in her Shopify dashboard, in her ad platforms, in her Klaviyo platform, and I could see that it was easily possible. Hint, in just under 12 months, she's grown more than 200%. So she's achieved her ROI goal and more. But it is really important to be able to assess these things, right? And so the first thing that you need to be able to do is to identify for yourself what are the specific goals and objectives that you want to achieve, and make sure that you do choose the right kind of program or service that is going to suit that and to help you with that. And then, what is the method that you're going to calculate as to whether you achieve that successfully or not. So, obviously, if it's a sales and marketing type program, then it's pretty easy to choose a key performance indicator, KPI, or a metric, if you want to call it that, of revenue growth. That's a pretty easy one, right? But, track, like, first of all, select what is that metric or KPI that is going to be the method of calculating your ROI, and from before and after implementing the new knowledge. Obviously, actually implementing the new knowledge is pretty important here, because if you just take the knowledge in and don't do anything with it, then nothing much is going to change. But certainly, being able to note down what is that metric before you start implementation, and then what is it afterwards, is a very easy way to then calculate your ROI. Also, it can be helpful to compare the costs of learning in terms of time and money, as well as the business growth and revenue increases. And I say that just because, like in that story of in the intro, where this client, was trying to use free sources of learning for 3 years to grow her business, and nothing changed. And, certainly there would have been things that she learned, and, some things would have been better. Some things might have been worse. At the end of the day, her revenue didn't really change in that period of time. And so the cost of learning there, you have to take the time into consideration, as well as the money. An ROI of 10 times in 12 months is a better outcome than an ROI of 10 times in 10 years. You don't want to be waiting for that. So, a tip there for maximizing the ROI on your learning investments would be the speed of implementation and the speed of application. and maybe like my kids, all of my kids get the same comment on their school report card is such and such child must ask more questions. So, being able to really tap into the knowledge and experience of whoever you're learning from and not just sit there for hours trying to figure something out, super important as well. And, should be part and parcel of learning anyway, if you take investing in a program. So at this point, I definitely want to introduce you to our e-commerce mastery program. I guess before we get to that, it is a challenge to find high ROI learning opportunities that are tailored to your specific needs. I think that if if you're going with something that just is a shine, what's that phrase? Chasing shiny objects, shiny objects come along all the time. It might be a fad. It might be just something that somebody has decided to do, and you want to keep up with the Joneses. You don't want to miss out. But you really do need to have a solid think about what your individual needs are for yourself in terms of your learning style, as well as your business in terms of your business goals and objectives. So let me just share a little bit about our e-commerce mastery program. So this is, as the name suggests, it's for e-commerce businesses, specifically for e-commerce retail stores and direct-to-consumer brands. So if you're the brand owner and you're selling to your own customers via an e-commerce store. But more specifically than that, it is a one-on-one personalized business coaching program. So if you are the kind of person who perhaps is a bit of an introvert and doesn't respond super well to big group sessions, or